Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Vet Chats, where we help veterans share their awesome stories and help make the veteran community a better place. I hope you'll stay tuned to hear how this generation is continuing their service. Vet Chats is now available on Race Across America Radio. We will be played Mondays at 9 p.m. and Saturdays at 3 p.m. They have a ton of great veteran content that I know you'll appreciate. You can find them on Race Across America Radio, iHeartRadio, or the Odyssey app. And finally, the Veteran Workbook is available. The best place to find it is the link in my bio. It's $10 on Amazon. Give it a try. Hello, everyone. I hope you all had a great weekend. I know it's cold in a lot of places. We got some snow. Hope you're staying warm. Hope you're maybe even had some fun outside. You know, I got to go outside a little bit. Act like a little kid. It's always fun. Well, anyhow, tonight I'm super excited. We have Meech Speaks on. I know you guys have probably heard of him. He's someone that you could listen to for hours. This guy has wisdom. I got to meet him in person at the Military Influencer Conference. I'm excited to have him on. So let's get Demetrius on. Oh, yeah. Hello, everyone. Hey.
Hey, what's up?
Hey, how are you doing?
I'm doing good today. How are you?
I'm not bad today. You know, I feel like I got lots of energy. Might be just like that, I don't know, but it's good.
No,
How was your
absolutely.
weekend? Did you do
My
anything
weekend,
fun?
uh, I've been editing nonstop this weekend. I've been in a chokehold with it. Edits, interviews, couple of episodes. So it's definitely been a
Ooh.
down weekend for me.
Hey, you got some new podcast episodes coming out?
100%, 100%. Just dropped a heavy episode, so that comes out tomorrow. So I'm looking forward to sharing that with everybody.
You want to talk about the topic or?
100%.
Let's
You
go.
know, what's so crazy about this episode is that back in like 2021, I was journaling. You know what I mean? Or let me rephrase that. I tried to journal.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you've ever journaled before, but I legitimately tried to journal. And I gave it my best shot, but 2021, to give it a little bit more context, was probably one of the roughest years that I've ever been through. It was definitely a very trying time, new unit, new promotion, going through the ups and downs of trying to figure myself out while still maintaining a brand in itself. And I got to a real dark space. And I remember going through that journal, and each page, as when you go through, you ever seen a picture and you see the picture and you're just like, dang, man, like I remember this moment. Each page felt like I was remembering each moment.
Oh.
And I got to like page 27 and I just stopped. And I know for a fact that it wasn't one of those where I put it down and said I'm gonna walk away, but I got tired of just showing up and just showing up negative.
Mm-hmm.
So here it is, 2024, and I saw it and I wrote back in page 27. And I wrote in a sense of like, Meech, man, like I think you kind of like a piece of you still needed to hear this.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like he needed an update, because at that time, like he didn't think that he was going to make it through. And I don't know who need to hear that, because a lot of people, they go through that storm and they feel like they're not going to make it through. And, if you could see yourself in the future, if that person can come in and just say like, hey man, like you really going to make it through. I just need you to keep pushing forward.
Yes.
I felt like I owed it to myself. So this episode is all about being proud of yourself and getting through that storm.
I love that. You know what? I was just having a thought because I keep all my old journals and I was just going through them and like, yeah, it was bringing me back to a really dark spot.
Mm-hmm.
It was like a really hard part in my marriage. And I was like, why? I need to just throw my old journals away because like I carried with that with me for the rest of the day a little
Yeah.
bit. And so I was actually like,
Oh,
I was like, you know
you
what?
tossed yours.
No, I didn't, but I had the thought.
Okay.
I said, I need to go next time I go through them. I just need to toss them. Why am I reliving these? Like I've progressed from that. I don't need to go back to that headspace. But you just brought up a great point. Why don't I take my pen and write like, hey, you went through this, but this is how it turned out and you needed to go through that. Like why can't I just like, I love that.
100%, you know, because I feel like a lot of times, like we go through those periods in our lives and we want to put it behind us. You know what I mean? We want to
Mm-hmm.
forget about it. We
Right.
wanted to put it on the shelf and just act like it doesn't exist. But that piece of you, that's still a piece of you, and that piece of you is still craving that future that it doesn't know that it achieved. You know what I mean? Like there's still that period that feels like I never made it out. So I felt like, in a sense, by me writing and letting that 2021 version of me know, it was almost like giving myself kind of closure. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yes, yes, that closure. That's so important. I love that. I love that's a great way to start this. So, Meech, for anyone who doesn't know you, maybe some folks from my end, how would you describe yourself in 2 sentences?
Oh man, like can I just go ahead and just kick it real quick?
Go for it. Take the
All right.
mic.
So what's going on, everybody? It's that ordinary podcaster with the extraordinary thoughts that tells you to stop being great and be extraordinary. I'm Demetrius Thigpen, also known as Meech Speaks, the host and creator of the Talkin Crazy podcast. I really feel like that sums me up in a whole mouthful in that piece right there.
I love it. I love it.
Thank you.
That's great because okay, also, you're from Detroit. Are you
100%.
a Lions fan?
Um, I want to say I'm a Lions fan, but I was never a public Lions fan.
Okay.
I just felt like because I was born and raised in Detroit, that was just something that I had to be. Now the Lions are winning.
It's
You
a
know what I mean? And I want to
good
be
time to
happy, but
claim that.
you feel me? But then as soon as I claim it, everybody's gonna be like this. Oh, well, you were a bandwagoner. I'm like this. I'm born and raised. Like I'm born and raised in Detroit. Like
Yeah.
I'm
Your
here.
birthright.
You know what I mean? Like, but everybody's like, oh, well, you can't claim them now. You didn't claim them then. I was like, this. Well, I'm sorry. I'm tired of being depressed.
Hmm.
Like 2 years ago, if you was watching a Lions game, it was a sad day on Thanksgiving because you already know that if they lose, man, like people don't want to talk about it. You know what I mean? Like they be hurt, man. Like
Hmm.
it was a rough time in Detroit. So big shout out to the Lions for the win.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, it's exciting. I think I'm gonna wear some, what is it, Honolulu blue.
Yeah,
I'm feeling it. I'm excited for the Lions. My grandparents were Lions
for
fans,
real.
so but yeah, I'm from Upper Michigan, not
Are
like,
you a Uper?
way. Yes.
You're Canadian.
Yeah, pretty much.
Oh
Pretty much.
my
I don't have the
God.
accent anymore. So I was born there and I lived right on the border in Wisconsin, but like all my family, everyone's from Michigan. I could
Really?
throw a rock and I'd be in Michigan. Like that's how close I was. But
Oh
yeah,
my
Uper.
God. I'm really from Michigan, so you know exactly how I feel about like the Upper Peninsula. And you know, it's so crazy. I've never even been. I've never even been to the Upper Peninsula. I've heard that it's very beautiful, though. I heard that it's very
You
beautiful.
gotta go across the Mackinac Bridge and
Okay,
you gotta see that part. There's no one up there. I mean, it's no man's
really?
land, but
I'm looking forward to that.
yeah, you gotta go. Oh, cool. So we always refer to people like yourself as trolls because you're under the bridge, you
See, this is why like everybody in Michigan hates Ubers. Like I'm not even about to like this is it. Like I have a Michigan tattoo and he asked me, he was like, hey, do you want me to add that? I was like, don't add that. All right. I need the state of Michigan. All
You
right.
just
Not the
got the
Upper
mitten?
Peninsula. Yeah, I don't need like what is this
That's
piece
cold.
for? Like I've never
That is so
been.
cold. But really, it should be a part of Wisconsin.
100%.
There's like some historical reason why it's not because it touches Wisconsin, it's like right
Yeah.
there. Why is it a part of Michigan?
I don't know. Like I thought it would have honestly been like in
Yeah.
Kansas, to be honest with you, because of how close it is. Like I swear, like I always knew that Michigan and the Upper Peninsula were connected, but I just never understood why. Because I mean, the Upper Peninsula is so far away. I thought it should have been its own state, to be honest with you.
It should have. It should have.
Yeah.
There's like there's like some brewery up there. It's called 51st State. Like they call themselves the 51st State.
Really, I like that. I like that. I'm gonna look that up actually.
They're like Texas. They're always trying to get, separate. But anyhow, back to you. So you ended up in the Marine Corps. Why the Marines? What was behind that decision?
Oh my God. So how I ended up in the Marine Corps is actually a funny story, to be honest with you, because I didn't even know the Marine Corps even existed. All right. Born and raised in the city of Detroit, Michigan. And the only two outcomes, honestly, is either you're going to go off to college, and if you don't end up going to college, you're going to end up going to a factory. And then you always got your bonus one where you're going to end up in jail. And to be
Mm.
honest with you, I knew for a fact that college was not a thing for me. I knew that 12 years of school, I already knew that college was not going to be a thing for me.
Wow.
In fact, I knew that when everybody else was stressed out about taking their SATs, my name didn't get called, and I didn't even bat an eye. I was like, all right, well, I'm out of here. And I called my mom. I was like, is you still in the parking lot? You know what I mean? Like hurry up and come get me. They didn't even call my name. She's like, what do you mean they ain't call your name? I was like, they didn't call it. All right, let's get out of here. And some guy like kept telling me like he had just recently joined the Navy and he worked at Myers and it was like a Walmart and we both were pushing carts and he was like, yeah, man, you should join the Navy. I was like, I don't want to swim. I don't want to get in the water. So for real,
The
like,
Marines
I
is
was like this.
so much better.
I didn't know
Don't
that.
you have to swim?
100%. In fact, we got an event tomorrow that I'm gonna have to get in the water, and I'm not looking forward to that. So there's that part of the day. So I go to a recruitment office, and my intent was to join the Air Force. I can't recognize the uniforms. I don't know the difference. So I'm sitting in a Marine's office, sitting there talking to a Marine Corps recruiter, having this conversation, and I look him dead in the face, and I'm like, "So tell me about the Air Force. Like, what do you think of it?" And he starts saying, like, what do you think I think about the Air Force? This is the Marine Corps, starts chewing my ass. Like, no lie. Like, he starts chewing my ass. I've been there for like an hour. So he's like, what are you going to do? And I was like, well, I guess I'm going to join the Marines. And then, boom, next week, I was gone.
Wow.
Yeah. I actually got
1
shipped out
week?
pretty fast. I'll say, like, probably like after MEPS, I'll say like 2-3 months, I was out of there. I wasn't even there long. Yeah.
You're like, I don't care. Sign me up. Any job. Where do they need me?
Get me out of Detroit and let's go ahead and go on about our days. And that's exactly what he did. He got me right up out of Detroit.
Wow. So what career field did you go into?
I ended up going in the 13. I initially wanted to be a crash fire rescue, but when I was at MEPS, one of the recruiters came out and he looked at me and he said, do you want to be a mechanic? And me just wanting to get out of Detroit, I looked at him. I was like, do I get to work on fire trucks? And he's like, I don't know. And I ended up being an HE mechanic. I have no idea what that was. And it turns out that's the stuff that Bob the Builder works on. So like tractors, trams, cranes, I work on that.
Okay. So where was your school then?
In Fort Leonard Wood.
Okay, where's that?
Missouri.
Oh, fun.
It sucked. Oh my God, it sucked.
I never heard of anyone going to Missouri for the Marines.
I didn't either. And the thing is that somebody read my numbers off wrong. They read my MOS off wrong. So instead of saying 1341, he said 1371. So when I found out, I initially thought I was going to be a combat engineer. And I asked one of the sergeants, I was like, yo, what's a combat engineer? And this motherfucker looked at me. Can I cuss on here?
Sure.
You okay. Already did? And yeah, it's already out there. I just wanted to make sure, like, because I was going to reel it back in. But this motherfucker looks at me and he says, boop, 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 boop. And I was like, what is that? He was like, pink mist. I said, what is that? And he said, you'll figure it out. And I'm like, oh my God, I don't want to figure that out. So the whole time I thought that I was going to like be a combat engineer. Turns out I'm actually a HE mechanic. And that's how I actually ended up in Fort Leonard Wood.
Wow. So you had like totally talk about like missed expectations. 100%.
Like 100%. Life expectancy went from 5 minutes to 50 years. And I was like, thank God for that.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. And like that probably continued, like thinking you were getting into something else.
Oh my God. Yes, 100%.
And I know from listening to a few of your episodes that you weren't always like this top-notch Marine. You had a kind of a rocky start.
Yeah. Yes.
But you turned it around. So what was it like, like those first couple years, like that first enlistment, what really set the tone for that compared to where you're at now?
Oh my God, man. I'm just going to be completely honest. I was a shitbag. All right. Like I a lot of people always like to sugarcoat that. And they say like, oh, well, I was a knucklehead or I had I was a little rough on it. You know what I mean? Like that old saying, like Jesus Christ. But I was legitimately a shitbag. And I wasn't a shitbag in the sense of like my uniforms were sloppy or I was falling out of PT. I wasn't in that direction. I was born and raised in Detroit, Michigan. I spent 18 years there. And when you spend 18 years in one of the most dangerous cities in America, you develop a sense of survival about you, and that doesn't just go away, even if you join the military. So me adapting into the military was one of the hardest things. And to be honest with you, I almost didn't survive that transition. I would get there and it wasn't one of those moments of, oh, I'm getting yelled at. I'm used to getting yelled at. It's somebody disrespecting me, and I'm supposed to just be okay with that and
Mhm.
be casual. Especially like junior Marines, like other lance corporals and other corporals. If you were a corporal if I was in your fire team, you are about to become a great leader because I'm gonna put you through it. You know what I mean?
Like,
I'm about to put you through it. You got to have a lot of
so were
development.
you like constantly questioning, or constantly like, wanting to fight, or what was the
Always
mentality?
want, always wanting to fight. Always wanting to fight. I remember one time I told somebody, they said something to me. They said that's exactly what they said. They said, "Hey, you keep talking like that, I'm gonna come in this room." I said, "You come in this room, you're gonna get your ass beat." And everybody looked at me like, "Whoa!" I said, "No." I was like, "No," because I'm a firm believer respect is a two-way street, and you're not gonna disrespect me and think that I'm gonna be okay with that. I would continue that attitude for I want to say my first 2 years in the military. And because of those 2 years, I would go to jail while in the military. I actually have a mugshot that I posted a while back, and everybody's like, "Oh my God, the military saved your life." I'm like, the military didn't save my life. I was in jail when this happened. I was already in the military. You know what I mean? Like I
Yeah.
was a lance corporal when this happened, and it
Mhm.
just, to be honest with you, I was up for administrative separation, and I had a great sergeant, Sergeant Conziella. He pulled me off to the side and he said, "You really need to get your shit together." And I sat down and I was asking myself, like, what do I want? You know what I mean? Like, what's the whole purpose of me being here? And I say that because a lot of people will blame everything else. They'll blame the environment, they'll blame the people, they'll blame the situation, but they won't blame themselves. Now, mind you, I had just got out of jail probably like, I want to say like a week prior to that. And that was the reason why he told me that I needed to get my shit together. And I sat there and I really just said, you know what? Like, you got to make a change, bro. And slowly I started to transition into the top tier performer that I am today.
Yeah, and you got to think, you're probably what, 19, 20 at this time.
Yeah, 19,
It's
20.
hard for a 20-year-old to sit there and be like, maybe I'm the problem,
Yes,
I
a
definitely
hundred
didn't do
percent.
that. Everything else was the problem at that point. Like,
Yeah,
that takes frontal development for that to occur.
I
Um,
appreciate that.
but for you to come to that conclusion and take the reins, I mean, a lot of people don't get to that point. They get kicked out, they get jaded, they get upset. They blame the military, but you really took that and you're like, all right, I this is a pivot point. I can go left or right, and you did that, and that's tough.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest deciding factors was is that a lot of people have the luxury to go back, and they're gonna go back to family, they're gonna go back to friends, they're gonna go back to, I don't know, mom and dad probably have something set up for them.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? I did not have any of that. I was raised in a single parent household. My father was an alcoholic. Me joining the Marine Corps was a way for me to get out of Detroit, Michigan, because what was waiting for me wasn't necessarily going to be anything good. I was just going to become a statistic. And I had to tell myself, I was like, bro, like, you're literally about to fuck up your only way out of Detroit. You're literally about to fuck it up.
Yeah, that really puts things in perspective and will put a fire under your ass
Ah,
to make
100%.
to
Yes.
make that choice. And I mean, still that's tough to do because you're in an environment that you're trying to adapt to, and it's not fun to become something you're not, and to swallow your pride and to go forward. So what were like those first steps that you were taking to because oh, and again, it probably wasn't like a pivot point. It was probably like a scoot here, a little back, like it was.
100%. Literally, if I told myself that I need to get my shit together Monday, I got my ass chewed Tuesday. Literally, it was like as if nothing. I didn't even have a conversation with myself the night prior, and I always bring that part up, man, because people think that when you say that you want to make a change, that everything else is supposed to just go in the direction of what the change is supposed to be. No, you are literally still that exact same person. All right, you're probably, I'll say, like 99% still that person, and it's a slow change. So literally, like on Monday I said I was going to get my shit together. Tuesday I got my ass chewed, and I slowly started to develop into that person, and I had to win over my peers. And then when I won over my peers, then I had to win over my seniors. And it was just like this, it was like literally working with bad credit or no credit at all and trying to get along.
Yeah, trying to build that trust back up. And also, like someone like yourself, did you feel like it was like the Marine Corps as a whole, it's very cult like? Did you
100%.
feel like you had to start drinking the Kool-Aid, or how did you take that? Because I feel like you saw it for what it was, and how did you take that and like twist it so you felt comfortable wearing that attitude?
To be honest with you, and I love the fact that you said that, I drink the Kool-Aid, because I remember in boot camp they said that, and everybody around me, and I don't know what it is, but I've always just been like a real big free thinker. This has gotten me in a lot of trouble, but but it's also allowed me to be able to see the bigger perspective. And I remember in boot camp, everybody was like, "Hi, sir," and I would always think to myself, like, we're only doing this because y'all are making us do this. You know what I mean? We're only like you're like, when some guy called me, he's like, "Hey, brother," I was like, "I ain't your fucking brother. Your mama ain't birthed me." And I've always had like that type of mindset, and it's not necessarily something negative. I just always saw it the bigger
Yeah.
picture. So when I wanted to get my shit together, I remember I was standing next to this one guy, and his name was Burnham. And Burnham used to say some serious things. And he used to say a lot of things, but nobody took Burnham serious because Burnham always said it very sarcastically. And I used to and I was the only one that paid attention. Burnham used to say a lot of things. And I was like, what if I just picked up on that personality trait real quick? And slowly I would say things, but I wouldn't say it with like a serious face. I wouldn't have a serious tone about myself. I would have it more of a like a happier expression. It was still the exact same thing that I would have normally said, but it didn't get my ass chewed. And once I learned that that worked, I started using it with my peers. And then once I started to realize, like, oh shit, I'm making a change. And I think the biggest thing that really helped me like dive into it was when people started to recognize me and they didn't look at me like a shitbag. Now, granted, this took damn near 6 months to get here, but when they stopped looking at me like the piece of shit PFC and Lance Corporal that I used to be, and they start seeing me for the version that I am right now, it was so wild. And it was like, oh shoot, I probably can work with this. Next thing you know, boom, they're sending me on McMap advancements. Next thing you know, they're sending me on Lance Corporal seminar, and it was like one of the first times when they started doing Lance Corporal seminar, and they said this would be really good for you. When I came back, they made me a fire team leader. I got Marines under me now, and I'm like, me? Y'all believe in me now? And it was such a weird experience, and it all came from the moment of just like changing, just making slight tweaks. And I think like a lot of people always say like, oh, well, I don't want to change who I am. I don't think it's necessarily changing who you are. I think it's adapting to the environment that you are in.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of like your nature as a human being. Like we have to be able to adapt in the environment that we're in.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. And so now you come off, you are a very confident person.
100%.
But going through, like not saying like your past or like maybe, like those bad parts that you went through, does that ever haunt you, or like did that ever haunt you and be like, wait, like who am I to be here? That kind of imposter syndrome.
Man, I will say that it haunts me all the time, to be honest with you. And I think that I've learned to accept that that is a part of me. It's not who I am anymore, but at the exact same time, it's allowed me to stay grounded. And I think that's one of the biggest things is that like people will sit there and be like, oh, well, that's in the past and leave it in the past. But it's like, bro, like that used to be you. You know what I mean? And because I knew that used to be me, it helped me interact with the other shitbags because I wasn't speaking from like a high horse. I was talking to him like, bro, like if you don't get your shit together, this is what's going to happen. I know that because it happened to me. You know what I mean? Or when they would say like, hey, this is what I plan on doing on the weekend. I'm like, you will go to jail if you do that. And I will have to bail you out. I know that because I went to jail and someone had to bail me out. So I wouldn't say that my past haunted me in such a bad way, but it always kept me grounded. No matter how many accolades that I received, no matter how many achievements that I would receive, I will always remember Lance Corporal and PFC Thigpen.
I like that. I like that. It keeps you grounded and it keeps you, grateful and appreciative for what you have now. And I feel like I could use that because a lot of times I look at past versions of myself and I feel like other people still see me as that person. And it's just like, it's like when you're like naked in the mirror, like in a dream, you know, like it's just like that scary, like, oh shit, like who am I? Like I don't have this, like you shrink back to that person. But I like that. Yeah, I'm gonna say that keeps me grounded. It makes me who I am now. So kind of like going this, you're growing. Where did the podcast come in?
Depression. You
Oh,
you know,
so
so
rock
yeah,
bottom. It
yeah.
sparked something.
A lot of people when they ask, like, you know, where did you get your idea for the podcast? Initially, I was in TRS and I was getting ready to transition out of the Marine Corps, and they asked me like, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" Like, not what I want to be when I grow up, but what do you want to be when you get out? And everybody else was like, "Oh, I already got a job lined up." I'm not prepared. I'm just gonna keep it a buck with you. I was not prepared,
Mm-hmm.
and as I'm sitting there, I'm like, well, I don't want to work for anybody else, but I kind of want to be a speaker. I want to be a motivational speaker. And they laughed at me. When I said I wanted to be a motivational speaker, they looked at me and laughed and said, that's not real. And I was just like, then I'll make it real. You know what I mean? I was like, I'll make it
Mm-hmm.
real. But then I started looking up, like, how do you become a speaker? And to be honest with you, it's almost like trying to make it into the rap game. You know what I mean? Like, you got to push that shit out at churches, schools. And I'm like, dang, I need to get my voice out faster. So I created the podcast. But before I had a name, it used to just be called Motivation for the Wandering Soul.
I
And I thought that was so
like
chick.
that.
You're the first person that ever said that they like it. I hated it. I
It's a little
hated it.
cheesy.
It's
It's a little
very,
hallmarky, but I like
yes.
it.
And, and I remember like kicking it and was like, hey man, what do you think about this? And everybody was like, oh, well, you know, it's all right, but it really doesn't sound like you. And the reason why is because I was trying to sound like everybody else. And I sat down one night and I scratched Motivation for the Wandering Soul off. I was like, this, all right, well, let's scratch that. And I was like, why don't you kick an episode, bro? And I was like, what episode would I kick? And my very first episode from Extraordinary Thoughts was Find Your Peace. And in Find Your Peace, I just laid out every issue that was going on with me. And it was almost like a play on words. It was like, I'm not at this person that's telling you to find your peace is not at peace right now. And I told him, I was like, I let everybody know that I was an alcoholic. I let everybody know that I actually think of myself as such a small person. I think of myself as a bad father. I'm a workaholic. I wake up in the morning outside, and the only reason why I woke up is because the dog was barking. And now I'm just and nobody knew that because I was just such a great Marine. And each episode was me dealing with my anxiety and depression, and nobody knew in the beginning.
It's like you took the hardest parts, the stuff you didn't want anyone to see, and you use that. You put that
100%.
out there. That's your shield. I feel like taking those parts of you, like anything anyone says, and using that as your shield, like here,
Mm-hmm.
you can't touch me now because I put it all out there. I wrote the narrative, all that. So, but like you're also someone who's just like, you have a voice. Like I feel like you found your voice probably at like a young age, and like where does that come from? How do you, how do you find this?
Well, I think I had years of being able to develop it. You know, besides being a mechanic, I was a martial arts instructor, and then I became a martial arts instructor trainer. And I would have to teach McMap advancements and run MAI courses, and I would have to get out there and talk to people, and I would have to kick these tie-ins. And I remember when people would kick these tie-ins, and they would just kick it, and it would just sound so like it just didn't sound right. But then I just would go out there and I would kick it, and I would kick it from a space of where I've been. And I have been a martial arts instructor trainer since like 2014. I didn't start podcasting until 2019. So I had gotten so used to just articulating my words and being able to tell a story and being able to talk in front of people for for 5 years. And then that's when I finally got on air, and that's when I started getting on stages and talking.
Dang, that's cool. That's cool to see that, and I know that takes guts. Public speaking was one of my biggest fears.
Mine too.
Even like doing a PowerPoint at school or in the Navy, like I did weather, so we had to brief a lot. Hated it so much. It was like a nightmare. But now, I mean, I still get nervous when I go live,
Really?
but it's like,
Really?
Yeah, a little part of me does. I'm just like, my heart will race, you know? Do you get that ever?
I,
Maybe
I
when you're
get
on
it
stage?
100%. Every time that I have to get on stage, I get some of the most negative thoughts come in my head. I'm like, I hope the stage crashes. I hope that this place catches on fire. Anything for me not to get up there. Anything for me not to get up there. And then I get up there and then it just goes away. It just
Mm-hmm.
goes away. But before, I'm like dreading having to go up there.
And how do you prepare for that? Like, are you in the mirror? Are you like reciting it beforehand, or is it kind of off the cuff? Like you have bullet
Um,
points.
I would say that it's kind of just, it's something that one of my biggest habits is that I talk to myself. And I don't know if it's because I've just always just been alone. You know what I mean? And when you're constantly alone, like you have to be able to talk somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And when I was a cart pusher, I was out there by myself. So I had to talk to myself then. And then I went to boot camp and I didn't make a lot. I didn't want to make friends. And everywhere I went, there was nobody around me but me. So I just got used to talking to myself. And then I start talking to myself out loud. And I hate it because people that aren't looking at me will look over and see me having a full conversation. So everything that I'm kicking on those stages, I've had that conversation with myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I fine tune and I'm like, oh no, don't say that. Say it like this. And I'm talking to me like there's another me. I'm like, no, Demetrius, say it like this. Like you gotta kick it, man. Like kick it.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, I can relate to that. I talk to myself. I'm an only child, so I grew up alone a lot. So
Really?
it's like, yeah, I've always been talking to myself or like in the mirror,
Yeah.
like talking to myself. So I feel like, but I feel like I still like I got a lot of room to grow. But that's exciting though, you know. Like, but okay, one thing I wanted to bring up before I forget was just like um just like how do you deal with hate? I mean, you're still active duty. You're in uniform a lot when you're posting. Like, you know, like that kind of puts a target on you. People feel like they know who you are because you're a staff sergeant. They've met one of you. So how do you deal with, you know, like backlash? I know one of your recent ones was talking about shitbags
Um,
in the military. And you're talking about my favorite vet bros,
oh
which they come after me all the
God.
time. I love ruffling their feathers.
I hate vet bros. I hate them so much. Like, that piece of me is what's that word? A work in progress. And I say it's a work in progress because I handle it well in person. I do handle it very well in person. But online, I'm not the type, and I've never really been the type to just let shit slide. I'm not one of those people that takes the high road. If you go low, I'm going to hell. All right. And the reason why is because I'm a firm believer. You like that?
Can't do that.
And I know, but I'm a firm believer that if I do not say anything, then you're gonna think that type of behavior is okay. And I've slowly taken a step back and was just like, you know what, Demetrius, it's whatever, bro. And the reason why I say that now is because I would get so many good comments and I wouldn't respond. But as soon as
Right.
somebody says something negative to me, I would immediately respond. And I had to say, like, why are you doing that, bro? Like, somebody just literally told you that you like this message really meant a lot to them and you liked it. But you about to give
Mm-hmm.
this other loser a comment? That's wild. And this is
Yeah.
now me talking to myself. And I'm like, that's wild. And then I started to realize, I was like, dude, like, look at the people that are commenting on your stuff, man. Like, look at this guy, man. He has a neck beard, bro. You know what I mean? Like, this guy has a dad bod. He doesn't even have kids. Like, most of the people that are commenting or take time out of their day to say something
Yeah.
hateful, they're losers. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? Like, the guy that sit there and say, like, oh, well, he's a pogue. He's never done anything. Bro, like, your entire military service that was the highlight of your life. You peaked. It's like you peaked in high school, you peaked in the military, and all you have to show for now is this. You know,
Mm-hmm.
and I kind of start feeling bad for him. You know what I mean? Like I was like, I'm better than these people. You know what I mean? Like, and I know people always say that, like, oh, well, you can't say that you're better than someone. I was like, this, yeah, you can, 100%. You know what I mean? Because that if you saw two athletes, the person that wins that race is the better runner, right? The person that wins that fight was the better fighter. So how can I sit here and see somebody and say that I'm not better than them? A lot of times, like people that show up online, like we're doing something that most people are dreading to do. Be vulnerable online is a wild thing to do. And when they say something about me, it's just like, all right, well, oh my God, I'm a loser, or oh my God, I'm a pogue, or oh my God, it's like, bro, that's not real. You're not real. And if you saw me in real life, and despite popular belief, I'm not a short guy. Like, like a lot of people like always see me in real life and they're like, oh my God, I wasn't expecting you to be this tall. I'm like, what do y'all think? I'm like 4'11" or something? Like, bro, like I'm not a short person.
Why
And
do they think that?
I don't know if it's the camera angle or it's because I'm always
Oh,
sitting
you do
down,
look
but people,
short right now.
you see what I'm saying? Like, and I try to like angle, I try to do a good job of angling it, but like you can
Right.
see it in my neck. I'm not a short person. And
I
when
met you in
people,
person. You're not short.
you thank you. And I feel like, like I needed that. I needed that validation right there. But most of the time when people say some negative shit to you, those people wouldn't even say that to your face. In fact, they will look at the ground when you walk by. They will act like you're not there if you walk by. They will do everything in their power to avoid you. And if you will do that in real life, I won't even give you the time of day now.
And don't you wish you could meet them in real life? I'm like, I
I
wish.
go into a dark place sometimes. I remember, depending on how bad the comments are, and that's another reason, because I needed to protect my mental health,
Right.
because I was like, bro, like you
Right.
go very dark, because I be wanting to like pull up their IP address and be able to find them. Like I'd be like this, so I can have that face to face
I want to
conversation.
message their
You know,
mom and tell them what they're doing.
I've called people like on Instagram. I really wish that feature would get disabled for me, because you would say some wild stuff to me and I'm FaceTiming you sitting there like this. Well, let's have the conversation.
Oh
You
my
know
God.
what I mean?
I had that. I had that energy. I was ready to go to bat for anything. And even on LinkedIn, I was willing to call out people. And you're right. It doesn't serve anything but our egos. And honestly, this community, there's a lot of pain. There's a lot of pain. And I say this, I'd rather people take it out online. They can take it out on me, take it out on my comment section. Don't take it out on yourself. I mean, if this is what you need to do, it sucks. It freaking sucks, but I'd rather that.
I appreciate your nomination for that, because I tell them every single time, like me, like a lot of people be like, oh, be assuming that, oh, Meech is so motivational. I was a thug before I started. I was in the trenches way before I became motivational. And I be trying to tell people that. And I also, one of the biggest reasons why I don't let a lot of that stuff slide is because of the simple fact that how can you get mad at somebody that's doing nothing but good? You know what I mean? Like they're doing nothing
Right.
but good.
Right.
They're not being disrespectful. They're not disrespecting your uniform. They're legitimately being the voice within your community, trying to speak on the issues that are plaguing your community. The same community that you bitch about, that community, the same community that you left like you were the fucking last airbender when we needed you the most, that community, the same person that probably talks about toxic leadership, veteran suicide, issues going on within the military, MSTs, like all of those issues that get covered on a regular basis that platforms like ours talk about, and you bring negativity, and then you want to complain when that stuff doesn't get talked about. Absolutely not. You've picked the right one now, because I'm gonna have that conversation.
Yeah.
And I tell people, like, tell me what you've done for this community since you've been out, besides complain and get your free breakfast on Veterans Day. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, like that get me
No.
every single time.
But I'm realizing something. I need you. I need people like you to do that, because I just can't. I can't do it anymore. I want to be out there. I'm like, I can't even read my comments. Like if I post something controversial, I won't read my comments. I won't even read my DMs for a few days. Like I lock this. I have an app on here, and it doesn't alert me anything. Like I can only check it for 30 minutes a day. I'm out.
And I hate that you feel like that. You know what I mean? Especially when you do so much for this community. You know what I mean? Not a lot of people, so many military influencers will get put on by the military and then forget all about this and act like as if like the military wasn't your first sponsor. So I always go to bat for the military influencer that speaks within this community, because it's hard. And I love posting controversial things because I know that you know what I mean? Like it's going to get the feathers ruffled, but it's also going to get the conversation started. And if you don't mind me transitioning into it, I would want to bring up one of my videos if it's okay with you.
Yeah, let's do it.
You know, one of my biggest videos was not a Marine 24/7. I got a lot of hate for that. I'm talking about I had people that actually knew me in person show up online. They were talking shit about me, telling me that Meech is a detriment to the Marine Corps. He need to get out. And I'm like, is everybody really mad because I said that you're not a Marine 24/7? How y'all gonna get mad at me? I also told y'all that y'all was husbands, fathers, sisters, brothers, mothers. I told y'all that. I told y'all to show up for y'all kids. I told y'all to show up for y'all spouses. Don't you think that's probably why divorce so high in the military? Because we Marines 24/7, and then when we come home, we go straight to sleep, wake up, get back on the boys. We spend more time with them than we do our actual family. Don't you think that's probably why the issue is going on? And y'all get mad at me because I say it. Y'all think that I'm attacking y'all identity. I'm not telling y'all that y'all not Marines. I'm just telling y'all that to give that exact same energy to the people that's going to be with you after you get out of the military.
That's what I was going to add. How does that serve you when you get out? How does that mentality help our suicide crisis, veteran suicide crisis? It doesn't.
100%.
It makes it worse because we're only identifying with one thing. And then we actually see getting out of the military. Our body counts it. Our brain counts it as a loss. You're losing a culture. You're losing a network. You're losing your identity. And if there's a way you can soften that blow, that loss, you got to have that mindset.
You know, a friend of mine, a real good friend of mine, I talk to him here and there. He told me, he said, you know, the reason why most veterans struggle to adapt back into society or back into, you know, on the other side, he was like, because if you really think about it and you peel back that layer, we never entered society. We never did. We were kids when we joined. Most of us were 18, 19 when we joined. You had just graduated high school. During that piece where you would have figured life out at college or in your hometown and get used to being in regular society like everybody else was, you were all right. You went into a completely different culture. Yeah. So you spend 4 years, you spend 10 years, you spend 20 years in a culture that's completely like none other. And then when you finally retire or EAS, now you are about to enter society. But the problem is that everybody else is looking at you like, we don't act like that. And you're like, hoorah, in a fucking McDonald's. You know what I mean? Like in a McDonald's. And you're wondering like, why isn't nobody looking at me? And it's a wild feeling. And that hurts because everybody else is just going to move on with their lives.
Yeah. It's tough. And we don't realize it until you're on the other side. And that's why I think, you know, you have a good mindset about it. And that's the last question I want to ask you tonight is like, how do you picture your life after the military?
Me? I imagine that I'm at least by this point, I should be in the top 100 podcasts. You know what I mean? I imagine that I should be at least in the top 100 podcasts. You know, if I don't, then obviously I spent the last X amount of years while I was in the military just fucking off. But that's been the biggest goal is to be that space or create a podcast that navigates through the trenches of life while serving in uniform and out of uniform. And I want to be that space and I want to create a podcast that is realistic for veterans and service members when we talk about self-help, self-improvement, mental health, and emotional health. And I bring that up because of the simple fact that if you ever listen to like a self-help book, or I mean, if you ever listen to a self-help podcast or a self-improvement podcast, they're talking about good things, but none of the shit that they're talking about truly applies to a veteran or a service member. It may apply more to the veteran, but it does not apply to the service member. A good example of that is if you're in a toxic work environment, then quit your job and go find somewhere else. I can't quit my job. I'll go to jail.
Just quit. Just
you know
quit.
What I mean? Like I'll go to jail. Like, or if you're dealing with some stuff, then how about you take vacation? I only have 5 leave days. And I was like, damn, man, like, and I realized that when I was at my lowest points, you know what I mean? Like, I realized that when I was dealing with my anxiety and I was dealing with my depression, nothing related to me. And I felt so unheard. Like, I was like, okay, I can't take this guy's advice because this is going to get me in trouble. I can't say this because this is going to get my ass chewed. So I started doing something and creating a space for us because I got tired of seeing I got tired of hearing people say that there's nobody there that's listening to me.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. And it's a hard space to reach. And I'm glad you pointed out, because there is such like a stark difference between military and veteran. I mean, we need someone to speak to both like you are. And yeah, well, we are up on time, but I want you to plug everything. You also have a book out on Amazon. Incredible.
100%. So with that being said, first and foremost, don't forget to tap into the podcast, Talkin Crazy. All right, that's talking without a G, on Apple, on Spotify, and your favorite streaming platform. Meech Speaks is available on TikTok and on Instagram. And lastly, the book, An Extraordinary Thought from an Ordinary Mind, is available on Amazon and Barnes and Nobles.
Oh, awesome. Well, Demetrius, thank you so much for joining. Thanks to everyone who joined the live. I hope you enjoyed it. Yeah. All right.
100%. Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Thanks again.
Absolutely.
Bye.
Bye.